All right, we are live in beautiful sunny Florida, and today, fight fans, we're going to be breaking down UFC 260, Miocic versus Nganu 2, the big rematch, heavyweight title. Great card, man. You know, we've lost a couple of fights, but we got some 10 quality fights, in my opinion. I'm very stoked to talk these. Of course, I had to bring on the big guns, so I got Joe. I got him to come on maybe a few days ago. He was, happy enough to come on a little short notice too, so I appreciate that. And then last minute, man, me and Justin, so me and him have been debating on one of the fights on this card for a while. We had a little talk, and then he's coming on here, and we are going to have I'm not going to lie, it could get pretty heated, but we have a debate.
Ooh.
I have 3 units on one guy. He has 3 units on the other. We feel pretty
Wow.
strongly. And yeah, man. So without further ado, Joe, I appreciate you coming on. I'm just going to ask you how you're doing, man, and what are your overall thoughts on this card?
Well, anytime, man. Like I look at you guys as like the fountain of youth in this sport, right? So anything I can do, like I was trolling you on Twitter and I saw that you said you had your usual host couldn't make it. So I'm like, shit, I'll jump in. You know, we've done pods before. I'm doing good, man. I'm coming off, as many people know, a really, really good week. In DraftKings. I've kind of got my ranking back up there to like in the top 15, actually 12. Now on Rotogrinders, like I had fallen all the way to 25, and I blame the day job on that. Like, there's only so many hours in a day, and while I'm still working, it's like that's first priority. Everything else is second. So, but I'm doing real good. I think this card is weird, like with all the cancellations. Obviously, I'm really stoked for the main event, as most people are. I think that there are some other intriguing fights on the card. I'm kind of a little bit annoyed that a couple of fights where I thought there were some good leverage spots fell off. But we could kind of discuss that later. But 10 fights, you got to be really careful how you play DraftKings, and I know we'll talk about that at the end. But yeah, I got to let the audience know I have no idea which fight that you guys are debating about. So I'm going to be really curious to see which side I fall on after you guys have your little debate.
Yeah, so basically, I'm going to start out with this. I'm going to let Justin defend his bet, and then we're going to let Joe kind of be the middleman. If not, maybe Joe, I have no idea who Joe's on in this fight, so maybe he'll be on my side, maybe he'll be on Justin's side, maybe he'll be somewhere in the middle. We will see, but we're going to start out with it. So the fight me and Justin are disagreeing on is Mocula Olejniczak versus Modestas Bukauskas. I have Mocula Olejniczak in this fight. I have 3 units on him. I was able to get in at minus 147. The line has moved a little bit. We got Mocula minus 160. Now you can get Bukauskas plus 140. I believe that's the number Justin took as well, plus 140. So props to you for at least waiting, Justin. But yeah, so let's get into it, man. So when I first looked at this fight, it's funny because I was actually looking at it from the standpoint of I was kind of interested in the dog. And the reason why is because there is some, concerns with Mocula Olejniczak, and I'll address that for sure. Like the size, he's probably the smallest guy in the 205 division. He doesn't have the best cardio, and he's got weakness to grappling. So immediately I wanted to look in and see what Bukauskas brings to the table, but I was not impressed with what Bukauskas brings to the table. So I watched his entire Cage Warriors career, and this guy's got a lot of holes in his game. I'll start with the takedown defense just because I don't think that matters so much here with McCall being a striker. Bukauskas has been taken down multiple times in 90% of his Cage Warrior fights. Not a good look at all. But I will say, I think he has patched that part of his game up a little bit. He was able to stuff the takedown against Miocic in his UFC debut. KO'd him with the Travis Brown elbows. And then in his next fight, he actually stuffed a takedown against Jimmy Crute. It was a pretty good attempt by Jimmy Crute too, and he was able to stuff that. But we know what happened after that. Crute, he smoked him. So I will give Bukauskas props in the sense that I think he's patched up his takedown defense a little bit, but I don't think that matters so much here. I doubt what McCall would shoot anyway. But what I'm really concerned about is Bukauskas is hittable, man. He's got a case of the tall man's defense, and he's pretty chinny, man. I mean, I'm not only talking about the last fight where he got knocked dead by Jim Crute. I'm not only talking about the fight where he got knocked dead by a 5-11 guy. I'm talking about him getting rocked by a jab on the Cage Warrior scene. I'm talking about him getting outstruck by Michaelitis before, Michaelitis decided to pull a stunt at the end of the first round. And Justin's shaking his head, but the strike count was 25-15 for Michaelitis up until the point where Michaelitis kind of gassed out, pulled the stunt, and yeah, that was just ugly. And if you know anything about Michaelitis is a guy who's known for gassing out every single fight. Also, he's a 185 pounder as well. So it's like if Michaelitis, former 185 pounder, can piece up Bukauskas 25-15 in the first round, what do you think Mikhail Olajacek is going to do? And not only that, man, like I was still concerned, like even seeing the striking defense of Bukauskas, I'm like, all right, maybe Bukauskas can come in here, land some takedowns. Let's watch all of his fights. Let's see if this guy has landed some takedowns. Guys, I have not seen Modestas Bukauskas land a single takedown in his fighting career. Now, how do they match up? How do they match up? McCall, I mean, even Justin will agree with this. McCall is the much more technical, powerful striker. He's got Bukauskas beat on the feet here, and it's hard to imagine Bukauskas landing takedowns when it's something he's never done before. So basically, you're pretty much banking on Mikhail Olajacek to slow down and gas out here, and for Bukauskas to get a comeback win, like what he has done, pretty much throughout his entire career. That being said, this is a really big step up, and let's talk about that gas tank of Mikhail Olajacek. I think it's kind of being overblown. So it's that OSP fight that everyone wants to talk about. So is it a gas tank issue or is it a pacing issue? Because if you watch that fight, McCall came out like a man out of hell there. Like he was putting on a serious pace that he just could not keep up. But not only that, man, when it got to that second round and he was slowed down, he was still throwing heat and landing heat on OSP. OSP started to land some good shots too as well, but McCall showed a great chin, and it was actually a takedown that OSP desperately needed. Like I said, Bukauskas is not going to come out here and land a takedown. We have not seen him do that. So not only are you banking on McCall to gas out here, you're basically banking on Bukauskas to be able to win rounds 2 and 3 or get a late knockout. And man, I just don't see it. I think McCall is just a much better striker. Like, even if he slows down, like I said, he was landing heat on OSP. I have no reason to believe he won't be able to land heat on Bukauskas here, even if he gasses out. And that's assuming that Bukauskas doesn't go down inside 1, because I think that's a very, very big possibility. So, yeah, man, that's basically all I got to say. I believe at plus 140, you're banking on a comeback or bust. Usually in those kind of situations, you should probably want a much better line than plus 140. So, Justin, tell me why you took Bukauskas here.
I agree with some of the stuff you say. I do think that Mikhail could get a first-round KO because he is a better striker, like you said, but I have to disagree with a lot of stuff you say, to be honest. So one thing for sure is that you didn't really I talked about it a little bit, but I feel like the size is going to be really big here. I just don't think Mikhail belongs at 185. I'm sorry. He does not belong at 205 in the UFC. He really does. He's so fucking small out there, dude. And about the competition, too, who is he really beating? He's beating the same level of competition, in my opinion, that Bukauskas has, and everyone that he beat, Bukauskas would beat 100%. And that's like, we can talk about it right now. Khalil Roundtree, he would beat. John Vellante, he would beat, and Antikilov, yeah, all three of those dudes, Bukauskas, 100%. And I'm not even worried about that. 100%, easily. He beat all three of them. We used to thought Khalil was decent, but come on, dude, Khalil's done, dude. He's been done for a long time. And Khalil was landing some good shots in that first round, but he just gassed really bad. But honestly, I wouldn't say I'm banking on it because I really don't think that Mikhail could go after this fight out of the first round. Like, if he doesn't finish him in the first round, it's going to be a long night for him, dude. It really is. So I do think he could get a first round KO. I mean, 100%. He could do it because that's his game. He's a good striker. We've seen Bukauskas get KO'd twice, but I still think Bukauskas is pretty tough. Like, he has a lot of heart. He's taken a lot of damage. He's only been knocked out twice. And Jimmy Crute's one of the best fighters in the division, let's be honest. He's probably going to be a top 5 dude. So getting knocked out against a guy like that, I don't think it's a bad at all. But in this fight, another thing you didn't mention either, that OSP fight was the first fight that he popped since he popped. So, I mean, he gassed so bad, dude. I mean, let's be honest, dude. Mikhail, I mean, we know he popped. I mean, 100%. He popped after the Khalil win. So, I mean, I don't know how his gas tank is, man, after popping like that, dude. I mean, he looked so good in the first round. The second round, he just didn't look that good out there, dude. And I know that you were saying that the takedown, but even before the takedown, OSP was landing some pretty good shots on the feet. And then the Crew fight we can kind of like just put it in the back because that was domination. Crew took him down at will and just finished him, So there's so many question marks in this fight, and I just don't know why you can trust a guy who's so small. He has really bad gas tank, and at the juice at minus 160. And I mean, I got the guy. It's the way bigger dude. He has the way better cardio. I do agree that Bell's better on the feet. He's more technical. But let's talk about the power that Bukauskas has. I mean, all of his wins are by finish for the most part. And the elbow fight, the Travis Brown elbows, he's done that before. He did that, I think, his fight against Richard Nagalasis or something like that before. So, I mean, he has good elbows. And honestly, the fight with Miocic too, I get it. He outstruck him by 5 strikes. But if you watch that fight, I actually thought he was looking pretty good until the elbows too. So I think he has a 4-inch reach advantage. He has good movement too, and he has good cardio, man. So it's not like I'm banking. I'm pretty confident that if Mikel doesn't go out there and finish him early, he's going to slow down, man. Because we saw what happened in the OSP fight. And we see what happens when guys pop, dude. I mean, this guy does not belong at 205 at all, dude. And Bukauskas is just so much bigger than him. He's strong. He's a tough-ass dude. And the grappling thing, I agree with you. I'm not banking on grappling here because I don't think he's going to do it. But would you be surprised if he went out there and win the takedown in the later rounds? No, I would not, because he's going to be hella gassed. So I would not. In the first round, am I banking on Bukauskas going out there and taking him down? No, I don't think it's going to happen at all. But I'm telling you, man, I will be sweaty because I do think the first round's going to be, a big round for Mikel. But if he goes out there and blows his wad, doesn't finish him, he's going to gas. And I think the Bukauskas could take over. He can, beat him up, pick him apart from range. He has the 4-inch reach advantage. He has a good straight left. He has a good right hand. So I think a lot of people are really falling into the trap that Mikel's just so much better. But that cardio advantage for Bukauskas is really big here, and the size. And those two are pretty big factors in a lot of fights. I mean, he's so much bigger than. OJ is probably going to show up like at 200, dude. I mean, let's be honest. He could show up at 170, dude. I think he could fight at welterweight. So it's just like, who is he beating? And I get it. Bukauskas hasn't beaten anybody either. But I don't know how you can sit here and tell me that John Vellante could beat Bukauskas right now. You really think that John Vellante and Tukulov, the guy that has the worst gas tank? Are you kidding me, dude? That dude has the worst gas tank than fucking Mikel, man. There's no way that dude would beat Bukauskas. That's a bad night. Very bad night. And then Khalil, I get it. Khalil's probably the best fighter out of those three. But come on, dude. You know how bad Khalil is, man. He's just not like, I get it. He has a hot girlfriend, and I don't know, man, what's up with Khalil, but he's just done, dude. He's not a good fighter. So I do think that Bukauskas would be all three of those guys. And I don't think that's a bad statement at all. I mean, I'm sure most people would agree with me. If you're gonna sit here and say those guys would beat Bukauskas, you guys have a lot of shit to think back in your life. So, and this is a big fight for both of us too, because both of us are on pretty good runs right now. You're doing really good right now in the betting community. I've won 3 on my last 4 cards. The only losing night was the stupid Pete again. We don't need to talk about that. You didn't know how pissed I'm about that shit. If it wasn't for fucking Yan, I would have had a winning night. So Aljo, if you're listening to this, you're a fucking bitch. Just kidding. I like you, Aljo, but still, that was bullshit. That should have been a no contest. So, yeah, man, I got plus 140, and I really think this is a good spot. And I will agree with you that the first round is going to be hairy, because I don't think he can go out there and knock out Mikel in the first round. If he does, he does. But the first round is going to be huge for Mikel, because if he slows down and doesn't get him out of there, it's going to be a long night for him. There's no way in hell Mikel is going to win a decision. There's no way. And there's no way in hell Mikel, I feel like, could have any success in the second, third round. I just don't see it, man. I don't. Who is he had success in the later rounds? It's Khalil. Khalil has probably some of the worst cardio in the UFC, straight up. And if you watch Bukauskas' career, he's known for his cardio, dude. Like, he has a great gas tank, 100%. He's gone 4 rounds. He's gone, he never slows down. So I don't see it. If he doesn't get sparked in the first round, this is a really good spot for Bukauskas.
So have you seen that fight where he won in the 4th round, Bukauskas?
Yes.
His last Cage Warriors fight, yeah. So
he was down 30-27 in that fight, and he got the comeback win in the 4th round. But you know what? A lot of the points you're making, for sure, I don't disagree with. But a lot of that, you're assuming that he's going to make it out of the first round. And I didn't even mention he's coming off that brutal KO loss to Jimmy Crute. That was only 5 months ago, guys. Usually when I see guys take KO losses like that, I like to see him take a little more than that, maybe like a year off, especially a young guy who still has a lot left in the career. So that's a major red flag there. And as far as the guys that you mentioned that McCall beat, I would absolutely argue that McCall beat the way better competition. I mean, each of those three guys you mentioned, Khalil, Antigulov, Gian Vellante, all three of those guys have multiple UFC wins, whereas, Bukauskas' best win is a dude from Greece in a fight where he was losing.
Could they beat Bukauskas right now? No.
It doesn't matter. That's not the fight. So as far as the size goes, it's pretty clear that McCall makes up for his size with his speed and his footwork. I mean, he moves quicker and a lot better than most of the guys in that division just based on that. And yeah, he doesn't have the cardio advantage here. Bukauskas 100% has that. But like I said, even when he slowed down in that OSP fight, he was still throwing fire, and it was that takedown that OSP needed. And I'm just not sure that Bukauskas is going to be able to do that. So I can still see McCall having some success in the second round. Third round might get the hairiest if it happens to go there, but I think by then we can either get an early KO or built up the 2-0 lead. So we'll see, my man. I had a lot more points, but I kind of forgot. This has been fun. You have anything else you want to add, Justin?
I just don't think you can sit here and say that he's a chinny dude. I think he's a tough dude.
Oh,
he has been knocked out twice.
Chinny.
I think he's really tough, and I think he has a lot of heart. And I think you're going to see that on Monday.
Yeah, here's what I would recommend, guys. I would recommend that you both hedge your wagers by betting that does not go the distance. Like, I don't see the props yet, but I would be very surprised if this fight goes the distance. I'm not going to be quite the tiebreaker. Maybe you'd hoped, because I see this as a must-target fight on DraftKings. I have to believe it's going to have one of the best inside the distance lines on the entire card. Simply because these guys generally do not make it out of the first or the second round. So I like it that way. Now, if you were going to ask me if I had to pick a winner and I was going to give a lean, my lean would go to the Polish fighter, right? I do think the competition is better. I do think he's got a speed advantage. I don't know. These are both, let's be honest, these are both lower level 205ers. I think we all agree on that. They're not these guys are not going to be top 15 205ers. They're not going to be fighting for a title anytime soon. They are what they are, right? You need curtain jerkers for cards. You need to fill out cards. So I would say look at, as long as it's not an obscene number, look at the does not go the distance for betting. And then for DraftKings, I really do think whichever side you like, you could certainly be overweight, but I do think that on a 10-fight slate, this is a fight to target, because both of these guys have put up some decent scores in DraftKings if you look at the fight lines. So I would say have exposure to both fighters. This is a fight to target. My lean is to the Polish fighter, but I really do think it's fairly close. I don't know that I am comfortable enough like you guys to bet on either fighter. I mean, I will place a wager if I could get a decent line on the inside the distance, and then use both guys on DraftKings.
I do agree. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah,
I was gonna basically agree with Joe. I mean, every single lineup that I don't have McCall in, I'll probably have Bukauskas in. Now, that being said, I'll probably have McCall in about 70% of my lineups. But go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, so Joe is talking about if this fight goes the distance. I mean, let's be honest. Kelton wishes this fight doesn't go the distance, because this fight goes out in the first round, in my opinion. It's all Bukauskas. So we'll see what happens, dude. I'm really excited about this fight. I do think Mikel has good striking. I like the volume he puts out. I like the pace and all that stuff. But I mean, these are 2 fights deep since getting popped, man. I mean, I'm really curious to see how this gassing looks here. Like, let's see if he goes out there and looks really just calm. Like, I'm curious if Mikel can fight like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, man. He comes out of the gate a lot of his fights, so we'll see what happens. But
so if Mikel has a dominant first round, but your guy survives, would you look at a live bet on? Would you look at because you're going to get really juicy odds on a live bet if Mikel has a really good first round, yet your guy survives. You could probably get a.
If Mikel has a great first round and he's sitting on the stool dying and stuff, yeah, I mean, come on, dude. I mean, it's 100%, man. So
yeah.
Well, I'm curious. I'm really curious to see what happens in this fight, because I feel like a lot of people like in the community and shit are picking OLJ. I haven't really listened to Newsom's podcast yet. I don't know who he has in that fight. I'm kind of curious. I want to see, but a lot of people that I've been listening to, the big channel names, they are all on OLJ. So I might be one of the only guys that's on Bukauskas. But I mean, I like underdogs, man. I mean, if you guys know me, I usually bet on underdogs for the most part. So I got a lot of shit last week for the Trevin Giles bet, and I mean, I know because Kelvin had money on Roman, and I get it was a close fight, but I mean, in my opinion, I just don't know how he scored that fight for Roman. I mean, Trevin definitely won that fight, and people were attacking me on Twitter saying that was easy money for Roman. I'm like, what? How did he win the third round? I don't. Like, it was all Giles.
So I text you right after that fight ended. You said it. I had money on Roman, but I text you as soon as the fight ended. I said Giles definitely won that fight. I thought he clearly won it. I wasn't being biased at all. That was a good bet by you. Especially you got like what plus 120, plus 125, something like that.
120. He pisses me off because I like him a lot. I actually think he's so talented. Just his fight IQ is not good, but he honestly impressed me a lot on the mat because I thought he was going to get tapped out because he's really been tapped out twice. So I was like nervous, bro. I'm like, God damn, it's just going to happen again, dude. But dude, he looked calm on the mat, dude. So I mean, he's a brown belt too, so he knows what he's doing. He really does. It's just he's done some stupid shit, man. But he's talented. I actually think he could be a top 15 dude. I don't know if people would agree with me, but like
I don't think he could be top 15 working as a full-time police officer.
No, he needs to 100% fucking like give it up. And I mean I don't know, man. I don't think he will because you see, he's pretty young, dude. He's like my age, dude. So
yeah, look, I respect the profession, obviously. It's just that's something hard to walk away from. 20 years in a pension, and like hopefully you don't have to fire your gun. So it's a tough decision to make. Like, are you going to give that up to go become a professional MMA fighter with no pension, no medical, like none of that stuff? It's going to be really, really, you really have to have confidence in yourself to do that.
He's 5-2 in the UFC. So, I mean, you're on a 3-5 winning streak. So, I mean, like, who do you give him next? Like, I'm trying to like, who should he fight next? I've been debating it like really hard. I don't know.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that he's 5-2 in the UFC because like those two losses are two fights that he really could have won those fights. Like we could be talking about 7-0 Trevin Giles. And Justin, I actually agree with you that he could be top 15 skill-wise. Like I think skill-wise, he's got really good boxing, he's got really good speed, he's got good grappling, and he just showed improvements in the sense that he didn't panic when it hit the mat. So I mean, if he were to focus, a little more full-time on MMA, I think he's got the skills to be, a top 15, even top 10 guy. I like him a lot.
Don't give him Strickland because I think Strickland could beat him. I'm pretty high on Strickland, so yeah, don't give him Strickland, but maybe like give him like Alessio or something like that. Alessio would be Dave Chirico, or I mean, who knows? But yeah, man, it was fun. It was a fun debate.
Let him get the rematch with Mearshart and get that win back. You know?
Oh god.
Or he got choked. Get that back.
Yeah, I think Brendan Allen wants that fight again too, because I mean he beat Brendan Allen in the past and shit like that.
By the way, guys, objectively, I thought James Krause won the fight against Giles. So I mean, I know he's got the win.
It was a close fight. Yeah, I scored it for Giles, but yeah, it was a close fight.
Yeah, on a full camp, I think you got to lean Krause. I mean, Krause is just so successful as a coach right now. Does it really make sense, for him to actually be a fighter?
There's shit about Giles that pisses me off, like his fight IQ, but he just doesn't throw enough. If he threw so much more, he'd be so much better. Like,
he's very inactive.
The way he carries his jab, dude, is really good. Like, that jab is fucking sick, bro. I remember when in the past, I was like, his jab's one of the best in UFC, and I think Kelvin was like, dude, this jab sucks, but his jab's hella good, man.
He's an athlete. He's a really good athlete, for sure.
All right, Justin. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. That was a lot of fun. Me and Joe are about to break down the rest of this card. So, Justin, I'll let you shout out your channel real quick. I know you're about to do your podcast, so tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, man. I'm going to do my podcast probably like 25 minutes. You can find me on Twitter, UFC Bro Picks. You can find me on, UFC Bro Picks on YouTube. Yeah, man. People always DM me and they're like, are you and Kelvin like hate each other now because you guys aren't doing your shit? I'm like, no, we're still friends, man. We just both like decided to do our own thing. Like, dude, you don't realize how many people hit me up every day and ask me like, do you guys hate each other? I'm like, no, we don't fucking hate each other. We're still friends, man. But
you doing your podcast solo? You do it solo this week? Are you doing it solo?
Yeah, I always do it solo. Yeah, I don't really have anyone come on, honestly. I usually just have Kelvin. Like, no one. I think Guru's come on a couple of times, but I have a busy schedule. I mean, Kelvin have different schedules, so like I'm on graveyard now, so I actually working like 3.5 hours. So I mean, I usually do my own thing and stuff.
3 hours. It's tough.
I work at 9 p.m. So I work 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., which kind of sucks.
Wow,
but it is what it is. Yeah, but yeah, Joe, thanks for coming on, man. Good seeing you
anytime,
again,
man.
Dude. Joe's definitely one of the best DraftKings guys out there, man. I mean,
so I'll tell you what, Bro Picks. You get Z to come on, and I'll be the third wheel. You get Z to come on your podcast, and I've known Kyle for years, so you get Z to come on, and I'll come on, and we'll do like a 3-person pod.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I mean, Z,
set it up, man.
But we'll set it up, man. All right, guys.
Yep.
Peace out.
Take care.
And
Appreciate it,
hopefully
Justin.
some people in the chat. Hopefully people in the chat shit on Kelvin for that Mikel bet. But later, guys.
Okay.
So that was a lot of fun. So here we
Yes.
go, guys. We're going to get to the rest of the card. 24 minutes in, we've done one fight, but here we go.
We'll pick it up.
Luckily, we only got 9 more. So
Yeah.
first fight of the night, battle of middleweights here. We got Abu Isatar, the return. Long layoff for him. He's taking on the Canadian Marc-Andre Barriault. Slight lean to Barriault now. We had to pick him for a few days there, and then a lot of money. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but a good amount of money's coming in on Barriault. You can get Isatar plus 110 in some spots now. And for me, like, I get it, fading a guy that has come off a long layoff, and he only has, one UFC fight, and it was against a 40-year-old fighter who retired shortly after, and Vitor Miranda. And on the flip side, you got Barriault, who, he just got a big knockout win in his last fight against Oscar Piechota. So maybe it's a little bit of recency bias. I'm not sure. I don't really have a strong lean in this fight, to be honest. The way I look at it, I think these guys are, there's not, from a DraftKings standpoint, like there's not a lot of grappling upside in this fight, in my opinion. And I don't think there's really much knockout upside here either. Like, I know both guys come to swing. They both got big power, but you look at both guys, I think both guys are very durable. Neither guy has been KO'd. So it's like, I feel like we're going to get a fight where, they might swing big in round 1, nobody gets knocked out, and then we kind of get a low volume fight rounds 2 and 3. So this is one of my fades on DraftKings, to be honest with you. But if I was going to go anybody, it'd probably be the dog. Joe, do you have a strong opinion in this fight?
Not a strong lean, but I'm also on the dog here. I think this line will flip back in favor of Isatar. I don't think a whole lot of Barriault. I don't know if that's the smart money that is pushing the line in his favor, or if it's the fandom that can, I don't get it really. I mean, I agree the layoff. I want to believe that Isatar has used the time to make improvements. And look, let's be honest. You got Barriault coming off of 3 losses and what ended up being a no contest or no decision against Piechota, who's not a great fighter. So he hasn't exactly been lighting it up. Yeah, he's been more active, which is good. So again, on a card where it's very hard to totally pass on fights, especially if you're playing DraftKings, there's a slight amount of value in Isatar at 8K versus 8.2K. So yeah, especially if the line flips, I think there'll be a lot more ownership that'll move over his way. Worst case, I see this being a fairly even fight. And in an even fight, I'm going to go with the guy I like. I don't have a bet. I don't foresee myself, unless like one of the other guys really convinces me, like Brad or Newman, that, they really see a standout play in this fight. I'm looking at purely from a DraftKings perspective. And there I like Isatar.
Yeah. So moving on to this next one, man. So we thought this fight was off, and then we find out yesterday through an interview. I forget who the guy's name who did the interview with Shane Young was. Maybe I'll link that in the description since I, shouted him out. But yeah, we got Shane Young. He's taking on Omar Morales. There's actually been a little bit of money coming in on Omar Morales. He's now sitting at minus 210. You can get about plus 180 on Shane Young, I'm seeing now. So honestly, man, I like when I first glanced at this fight, I thought Omar Morales all day long, and I still do have Omar. I think this probably is a good fight for him, but the thing is, I think Shane Young has some advantages here. Like the pace he brings is pretty incredible. Like he can keep up a great pace, and there's a big volume difference. He throws a lot of volume. So the way I look at this is if if Omar isn't able to knock him out early, which is totally a possibility, Shane Young is pretty hittable. Omar hits very hard. If he's not able to get Shane Young early and he's not able to keep up with the pace, I can see Shane Young taking over in the later rounds here. I don't want to bank on that. I just think Omar is too good for him. Not only that, his last fight against Giga Chikadze, yeah, he lost, but that was the first fight he took down at 145. We all know that a tough weight cut might take, more than a time or two. I always bring up, I forgot the example, but yeah, I mean, usually when you're moving up a weight class, it takes a fight or two to, get used to it. So I think this cut might be a little better for Omar this time around. I think he does get Shane Young out of there, but at minus 210, I'm not overly excited to jump on him. But for DraftKings, that first round KO potential, I'm going to be rolling with Omar. Who do you got, Joe?
Yeah, I have Omar as well. The caution here is that he's not a very high output fighter. So if this fight does happen to go to decision, he's not super active. If you look at, strikes landed, significant strikes and strikes, now that we have this new scoring system, he has not scored well in his wins, where Shane Young, on the other hand, and granted, Dye and Arnett, very soft competition, but still he put up 122 against Dye and 189 against Arnett. So, that is what your upside is in a win. And of course he got just lit up by Klein. Lasted not too long at all, scored 2 fantasy points. So, this is really interesting. I don't know that Morales is a world beater. There are some people out there who I respect that think very highly of him and are glad to see him fighting on this card. However, if he does not get that early KO, it could be a really low scoring decision. So again, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of fading a lot of fighters, but just because, I don't see Morales necessarily as a cash game type of play. I see him more as a GPP play because you are banking on that knockout. Otherwise, you're using a lot of salary to get a fighter that could potentially score, 60, 70 points in a decision.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more on that one, man. So moving on to this next one, we got Abubakar Nurmagomedov. He's minus 240 now. He's taking on Jared Night Train Gooden up to plus 205. It's interesting. This fight opened a lot closer. We had Abubakar minus 170, Jared Gooden plus 140. All the money has been coming in on the Russian, and if his last name wasn't Nurmagomedov, I don't think this line would be so steep. Joe, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, so look, anybody who's watched his last fight, he was doing really well until he wasn't. I mean, and I don't know if it was an adrenaline dump or if he just gassed out. He's going to have Khabib in his corner. We know that, right? Yes, he does have the last name. There's some, I don't know if they're cousins or, they're related somehow, but he is a wrestler, right? But, no way someone with a high level wrestling pedigree like that should get submitted from guard. I mean, I don't understand how that happened. Look, I like Zawada, but I don't think he's great. So what I would do is, I think this is probably if you play him, you're hoping that he's made improvements. And again, maybe it was nerves, octagon jitter. I don't know what it was, but he was looking pretty good. And then he just got caught, and you have to believe that Khabib got all up in his grill about that. And if something like that happens again, he's going to get really embarrassed. I don't see a lot of look. Night Train Gooden is sort of a friend of Daily Fan MMA. Like he's shown up on videos before, and he's just a great guy. I don't know that they're doing him any favors here. He's going to have a striking advantage. So if I was Night Train, I would let my hands go. Just like run out there, let your hands go. If you cardio dump, you cardio dump. But I think your best chance is to try to smoke him standing because that's where you have the advantage. So I'll have a share or two of Night Train Gooden. But, if I'm playing Nurmagomedov, I'm playing it because of the wrestling points, the potential for scoring on DraftKings under the new scoring system, getting control time. If he just grinds, I could see him wrestle fucking Gooden and even going to decision, but still scoring decently because he's getting points for control time. He's getting at least one takedown, around. So, I don't think he's going to submit him. I don't think he's going to finish him with strikes from the top. I just see him kind of, lay and pray and getting control time. So, I think he's fairly safe, but there is, a game plan and a strategy for Gooden. And it really is to just go all out, let your hands fly and take advantage of the fact that you're a superior striker. But, picking a winner, I'm going to have to go with Nurmagomedov.
So I think there's some value on the underdog here in Jared Gooden. Not only just the betting line, I think he's a great punt for DraftKings as well at 7,200. Now, what I immediately, obviously with Abubakar, it's his wrestling. That's his strongest point. He's a great wrestler. He's really good at getting to that crucifix position as well. So what I looked into with Jared Gooden, he had a fight with Mike Graves, a 5-round title fight in Titan FC. If you guys don't remember Mike Graves, he was in the UFC at one point. Big wins against Vicente Luque, Randy Brown. Mike Graves is a serious fighter, a serious wrestler. So I went and revisited that fight, which was, it was over 2 years ago at this point. Now, Jared did a lot better in that fight than I remembered, man. He actually stuffed, I tried to keep track, but he stuffed about 9 out of 13 takedowns in that fight. He showed really big strength, good balance. Like some of the takedowns he stuffed in that fight were really impressive. And Mike Graves had to put on a serious pace in that fight. And I'm just not convinced Abu Bakar is going to be able to keep up that kind of pace. Like, yeah, he could for sure. Like, if he's able to get on top of Jared, hold him down for the whole round, maybe he'll be the fresher guy going into round 2. But like the thing was in that fight against Mike Graves in round 4, it looked like Jared was much fresher. His cardio was better, and he actually won that round 4. And it was a good fight. I scored at 48-47 for Mike Graves, but that was a great fight. And like I said, that was over 2 years ago. So I'm sure Jared has improved since then. And that was back in a time where Jared was missing weight. Jared was showboating in his fights. And to me, it seems like he's taking his career a lot more seriously. And I just think people are counting him out way too much here. I think for sure, based on that wrestling advantage, you should favor Abu Bakar like he is a rightful favorite here. I just view it more as like a 60-65% more rather than like a 70-75% for Abu Bakar. So purely a value play. I'm going to be playing Jared Gooden on DraftKings. I'm even debating on a bet here. And really, I know you said he should just come out, go crazy with the strikes, try to knock this guy out. But I actually think he can have a lot of success in the clinch here. He's really strong in the clinch. If he's able to stuff Abu Bakar's takedowns, kind of pin him up against the cage, work the body, work the knees, I think he can win a lot of minutes that way. And that's just not even talking about the knockout. The knockout's going to be a possibility as well. Abu Bakar, I don't like the way he reacts to getting hit. He is hittable. He's been knocked out in the past. So, yeah, I mean, I got to favor Abu Bakar. I'll pick him to win a close decision, but I do think there's value on the underdog in this spot, man.
Look, I think you're right. I mean, I would not be unhappy if Night Train pulled this off. I mean, I think he could be a slate breaker on DraftKings if you play him, and especially if he gets the early knockout. At his price point, he's going to be the cheapest fighter on the card as it stands right now, I believe, right?
Almeida is.
Oh, Almeida. Sorry, that's right, Almeida over O'Malley. So yeah, I could start. Look, I think I like him a bit more than I like Almeida, but it's another kind of a live dog. But yeah, so I agree, Kelton. I think you should have some shares of Gooden. I'm not going to have Nurmagomedov in my primary lineup. I unless something happens where we lose another fight, in which case I might not play DK at all. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
So we're moving on to the next one. This one just got made today, actually. We got Alonzo Menefield. He's going to be taking on Fabio Charant, and we got Menefield. He's about minus 270. Charant, I remember him from Contender Series. He actually fought Alexa Kamor. That's how Alexa Kamor did get signed to the UFC. I went back and rewatched that fight, and man, it was not good. He really got smoked in that fight. And we're talking about a guy in Alexa Kamor who, not only do I think he's not really that good, he's pretty green as well. And I know Alonzo Menefield is green as well too, but like, man, this dude Charant is hittable. I don't think he's the most durable, and that's just an extremely big red flag when fighting a guy in Alonzo Menefield. Now, I had some big concerns with Alonzo when he was fighting William Knight, just because I thought that performance against OSP was kind of mind-blowingly bad. He looked like he had no idea how to fight. Like OSP was using the most basic footwork, and Alonzo was just running into the same punch every single time, and it was really, really bad. But this right here is the kind of guys that Alonzo should be fighting this early in his career. He clearly wasn't ready for the Devin Clarks. He clearly wasn't ready for the last one as well against OSP. So I'm glad he got this fight. I thought William Knight was going to be a tough one. I kind of agreed with the pick'em line, but here I also agree that Alonzo Menefield should be a big favorite. Have you looked into the Fabio Charant guy at all?
Yeah, I mean, initially when I saw it, I thought it was a joke. I didn't realize. I mean, what's interesting is, so he lost to. He has a 3-fight win streak, but he lost to Alexa Kamor on the Contender Series in 2019. And Alexa Kamor, believe it, who does he have his one loss against? William Knight. Lost the decision to William Knight, UFC 253, Adesanya versus Costas. I was kind of looking forward to Knight Menefield because I wanted to see Knight just kind of muscle Menefield around. And I actually liked Knight in that fight. I don't know, man. Lausanne MMA, decent camp in Boston. As bad as Menefield's looked, I think that they're lobbing him a softball here. I think he's going to be really highly owned, on DraftKings because of, the replacement. They typically do not change salaries. They just put the guys in where, so you're getting Alonso at 8.1K. He is going to be so highly owned.
For sure.
So I think he's almost going to be a plug and play of a lot of people. They're just going to squeeze him in at 8.1K and kind of move on from there. So I'm going to pick Lonzo. I am going to look to see if anyone else sees something that I haven't seen about this guy. Again, other than the fact that, the guy that, beat him on the Contender Series, lost to William Knight. I don't know what else there is to say. I'll pick Alonzo.
So moving on to the main card here, man, we got a fight that we thought might have been falling out, but I guess it's on. We got Jamie Malarkey taking on Kama Worthy. Some money coming in on the underdog. We got Kama Worthy. He's only minus 120 now. Malarkey plus 100. And when it comes to Kama Worthy's durability, I mean, this guy's been knocked out so many times. Like, I get taking the underdog money against him. But for me, man, I just view Kama Worthy as a much better fighter than Jamie Malarkey. I think even though you do have those durability issues with Kama Worthy, it's usually very, very powerful, good strikers that have been knocking him out. And Jamie Malarkey is a guy who he's kind of a punching bag, to be honest. So I just think he's going to be outgunned here to the point where he's getting hit so much it's going to be hard for him to fire back. Another thing with Malarkey, though, I get the dog bet because I think he has all the grappling upside here as well. So even for DraftKings, I think Malarkey could be a good spot, knockout potential, grappling potential. So I get it with Malarkey. I'm just going to roll with the guy I think is the better fighter in Kama Worthy. So I'll go with him to, I think he takes a decision here. Malarkey's a very tough guy. You see that fight with Brad Riddell, he's a extremely durable dude. So I'll go with Kama decision. Who do you got?
Yeah, this is a tough one because, if you play Malarkey, you're playing, the narrative is a guy that could take a lot of punishment, not necessarily a talented fighter, a guy that's got some offensive wrestling that could take a lot of punishment. I mean, 5 takedowns in his last fight, 3 takedowns against Riddell. In losses, Malarkey has scored 47 points in his last fight and 41 points against Riddell, which is a pretty solid floor. I don't think that Worthy is as good as Riddell. So if you're banking on him lasting and maybe getting kind of a greasy, in the words of Cody Safdie, a greasy type of decision, I certainly couldn't fault you for playing Malarkey. But, Worthy definitely has the finish potential, and he has that ability to score higher. I mean, I guess I'll take him. I mean, it's a lukewarm endorsement. And I will pick him to win here, but I can certainly see the logic behind taking some stabs at Malarkey for that grappling upside.
So this next one is very interesting, and this is also a rebooking as well. We got Miranda Maverick. She's about minus 160, taking on Jillian Robertson, plus 140. Joe, I'll let you start with this one. You're the women's MMA guy.
Look, first of all, I love Miranda Maverick. I mean, I was on her big time in her fight against Jujua. I don't necessarily think this is the best matchup for her. Miranda Maverick can get taken down. I mean, she got taken down regularly by Pearl Gonzalez in their Invicta fight. The thing with Jillian is if Jillian doesn't feel the fight is going her way, she gets really discouraged. I don't know if you've seen that, Kelton, in her fights. Like, if it does, like, she's not a rallier. Let me put it that way. She's not a rallier. She certainly needs the fight to go her way. And I think it can here. I think she can get the takedowns, maybe not early because Miranda will have a strength advantage here. I see her having actually a significant strength advantage. Watch her at weigh-ins. I mean, she will have muscles on her muscles. So I think she'll have a strength advantage, but Jillian is, a better submission grappler, and she's not going to go for traditional wrestling takedown. She's going to look for, grapple, trips, throws, what she can do to get it to the ground that way. And then she has the ability to spend some significant control time on top of Maverick. Now, again, if Maverick muscles her and if Maverick has success early, I could certainly see Jillian getting discouraged. And for that reason, I would have some shares of Maverick. But I'm going to actually pick the dog here. And I think in particular, she's going to be a very popular play on DraftKings at 7.4K. I see her getting a lot of love. I actually see people betting her. I'm not super confident here because, again, unless the fight goes her way from Jump Street, I could see Jillian getting discouraged and kind of mailing in the last round or last round and a half, in which case, Maverick with her strength advantage can win a pretty dominant decision, maybe even get a finish. So I would advise having some shares of Maverick, but I do think that a lot of people are going to be on Jillian here. So I'm going to pick her for the win. I do like Maverick. I think she's got potential. She's still young, but I think this is a good matchup potentially for Jillian as long as her game plan works.
So I'm going to be going the other way here. And it's funny because I actually had a bet on Miranda Maverick when this fight was originally scheduled, but I had got around minus 130, minus 135. Then it got steamed to about minus 160, minus 170. And that's where it opened this time. So I didn't quite get the line that I wanted. I still haven't. So as of right now, I'm not going to be pulling the trigger on Miranda Maverick, but I do like her in this fight. I think all the upside is with her. Like with Jillian Robertson, we haven't seen really any improvements. Like this girl still has virtually no striking. Like you said, it's kind of like the trips, like the basic, takedowns. Like it's not that pretty. Like she does have good wrestling. She just does have good jiu-jitsu, but I mean, Miranda Maverick is a legit brown belt. She's only 23. She's getting better every single time. She's got great experience over in the Invicta scene. I think she's got a hell of an advantage on the feet here. So I'm going to go with the girl who I see is improving every single fight rather than the girl I see has plateaued and really only has one path to victory here, which is the wrestling. And yes, you were 100% correct. Pearl Gonzalez took her down a couple times. Wasn't a good look, but I will say Maverick did get up. She won that fight. And like I said, man, this is just a young fighter improving. She's putting on that size too. Like you said, she's got the muscles on the muscles. Like, oh man, I honestly, if Jillian doesn't get a takedown very early here, and if Maverick lands a few really good shots, like you said, that's going to discourage Jillian, and it's just not a good look. As for DraftKings, I mean, I think this is one of the best women's MMA fights for DraftKings, and besides like a Nunes fight or like a big heavy hitter, you got a lot of grappling upside here from Jillian. And then as far as Miranda Maverick goes, like, I honestly could see this fight being a Macy Barber situation. Like, I don't think she hits quite as hard as Macy Barber, but I can just kind of see her overwhelming her on the feet and getting her out of here early because that striking defense of Jillian is just not good. But
it could happen.
That being said, with the way the line's sitting right now, minus 160, I'm kind of being stubborn. I want the line I originally got the first time, that minus 130. So I'm kind of just happy to sit back and see if this girl is ready or not, because, there's totally a chance she's not ready. There's totally a chance Jillian comes out here, gets takedowns, dominates, and does her thing. So it's a good fight, but I'm going to be rolling with the favorite.
Yeah, the last point is I think the best thing to do if you are betting on Maverick is to wait. Because I do think there's going to be some late money that comes in on Jillian. There's going to just be, a lot of people are picking her. People who do the later pods, I think, may be picking her. So if you're looking for a better line on Maverick, you're more likely to get that by waiting.
Agreed. So speaking of bets, I do have one in this next fight. I only have two bets as of right now. The first one was McCall Olajaychuk. I do have one here as well. So we got Sean O'Malley. He is about minus 325. Thomas Almeida about plus 270. I took the route of Sean O'Malley via KO/TKO, and I got plus 150 on that. Not only do I think this is just a good bounce back fight for him, Thomas Almeida gets hurt and rocked almost every single fight. He's definitely got chin issues, and man, Sean O'Malley is just going to be there right on him, man. And if Thomas Almeida isn't able to, we all know what Thomas Almeida wants to do here. We all know the problems with Sean O'Malley. It's that leg durability.
Yep.
If Thomas Almeida isn't able to get off on those things early, and by the way, Sean O'Malley knows they're coming this time. Like he knows for sure, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if those holes were patched up or not. Totally a chance they weren't, but if Thomas isn't able to get off on those kicks early, man, like I see Sean O'Malley lighting him up. Like he's got big power in his hands. He's just like I was saying with Maverick too. Like Sean O'Malley's just a kid. He's still getting better every single time. Like I know you remember when he popped, he was gone for a long time. And when he came back, I think it was against Teco Quinones. He looked like a brand new man. Like he had more muscle on him. He didn't look like I mean, let's be honest. He looked like a little kid against Terrion Ware and Andre Sukumtoff. And now he's developing into a grown man. And I think he puts Thomas Almeida away early here. Now I see a lot of people and doesn't go to decision as well. I don't mind that. For sure. Almeida has a path to victory to stop Sean O'Malley as well. But man, a strategy that I've been using that's been working a lot is taking these big favorites that I feel good about. And if I think they have a good chance to finish, I'm gonna take the extra money. I'm gonna take the plus 150 prop on a minus 320 guy, and that's what I'm doing here. Like last week, Montel Jackson, for instance, he was minus 700. I sniped that in the distance line on Montel Jackson at minus 130. Even going back, Umar Nurmagomedov, who made his debut against Sergey Morozov, Umar was like a minus 600 in that fight, but inside the distance was plus 200. I just think you can get a lot of value out of these props with big favorites, like turning these minus 600, minus 700, even minus 300 guys into, even money or plus money. So I've been rolling with these props. I'm going to keep it going here. I feel like Sean O'Malley knocks out Thomas Almeida like 60, 70% of the time. So that's what I'm going with. Who do you got here, man?
No, I like that play. I mean, if I was Almeida's coaches, I would be having him doing like 1,000 calf kicks a day, because that is really his path to victory is, and again, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's physiological or I don't know what the issue is with O'Malley and his legs, but, the path to victory is really clear, right? Is to just work his legs from the moment now, again, if you can do that and not get chin checked, more power to you. And I think that's the problem Almeida might have, because, O'Malley knows people are going to go after his legs. So he's going to look for opportunities to counter, to slip inside, maybe, God forbid, check a leg kick and then kind of, go for a clear shot to the chin. So I think the way you played it is the right way to play it. I'm also going to take Sean O'Malley here. I think he's going to be very popular in both cash and GPPs. I will say, have a share or two of Almeida in DraftKings simply because, there is a path to victory that is pretty visible here. So if the game plan works, would I be surprised? No, because we've seen him lose. Well, we've seen him win one that he shouldn't have won, because all Sukumatath had to do was ask him to fucking stand up. And we've seen him lose against, we've seen him lose his last fight, with leg kicks. So I would certainly say, have a few shares of Almeida on DraftKings, but I like your wager. I like the O'Malley by knockout.
Appreciate that, man. So moving on to the co-main event, we got the return of Tyron Woodley, the once former UFC welterweight champion. He's taking on Vicente Luque here. You got Luque as a big favorite, about minus 270, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just confirm that. Minus 250. So actually some money's been coming on the former champion here in Woodley. What are your thoughts on this fight, Joe? Because with me, like, this is a big step down in competition for Woodley. Like, yeah, he hasn't looked good in his last 3 fights, but Burns, Colby, and Usman are the 3 best welterweights in the division. So do you think Woodley can bounce back here against a big step down?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you remember the fighter named James Tahuna?
I do.
Okay,
yeah,
so
he's Australian, right?
Yeah, James Tahuna, yeah. So he was fighting a Canadian hockey player named Steve Bose. Yeah. And he was like a 5-2 favorite coming off of a number of consecutive losses. I want to say like 5 losses. And the argument for him being a 5-2 favorite was that the quality of competition that beat him was so much better than his opponent, right? So when you look at Woodley, like, that's what you have to think. Now, there are obviously some stylistic differences here, like him fighting 2 power wrestlers with unlimited cardio and then a jiu-jitsu fighter in Gilbert Burns. I would be hard-pressed to believe that Luque is going to try to take this fight down. Would not make any sense. He's a striker. And now let's look at Luque. Luque has gotten hurt by Nico Price. He's gotten hurt by Brian Barberina, right? He's gotten hurt by those guys in fights, clearly. He takes a lot of damage, right? If I was Woodley, and again, there's nothing, I don't have anything to base that he'll go this way. But if I was Woodley, I would immediately clinch and wrestle, right? I would try to get him down because his hands are deadly. Luque's hands are deadly. Woodley just looks old and slow. And for an old and slow guy, if you're a wrestler, you got to rely on your wrestling. Like, I think if he tries to play stand-up with Luque, even tries to play counter stand-up, he's going to lose, right? So I want to say that I think Woodley has a shot, but I keep harping back to what I always like to call the James Tahuna effect on fights. Like, are you going to back a guy who's coming off of a string of losses simply because, you know, the guy that you're facing off against is not as good as any of the guys you lost to? You know, like, and that's what you have to resonate. You know, you have to resonate that in your head. Like, am I going to really put my money on Tyron Woodley, who's coming off of, you know, a string of L's, who's what late 30s, right? Against the guy who's a power puncher, who's a striker, who hits, you know, who's game, right? Like, he's taken damage before, but he's survived. Are you gonna take that shot? And it's really hard to do that. I will have shares of Woodley on DraftKings because I do see a path to victory for him, but I'm gonna have to go with Vicente Luque here, and I'm gonna think that if Luque wins, he's gonna win by finish. I don't see this fight going to the distance. I think he wins by finish. I think if Woodley wins, I could see this fight going to the distance, in which case he would have to really put on a wrestling clinic, which he hasn't done in a long time, and that's like simply control Luque on the ground, get an immediate takedown so he doesn't take damage in each round, and just get control time and grind out a decision.
So you brought up a James Tahuna example. I'll bring up a Chris Weidman example. So what I'm talking about is we all thought Chris Weidman was really done at one point. He had lost either 3 or 4 fights in a row, all the top 5 guys, and then he took a little bit of a step down in competition against Kelvin Gastelum. And what did Chris Weidman do? He came out and he wrestled Kelvin Gastelum's ass off, got the submission, and then I can even make this example for Chris Weidman twice. After that that Kelvin Gastelum fight, he lost a few more, and then he got paired up against another step down in competition in Omari Akhmedov. What did the former champion do? He went out there, wrestled the dude's ass off. Yeah, it was kind of a close fight. It was 1-1 going into the third. Clearly didn't look like the same guy, but still, he got the job done. So when I see a former champion in Tyron Woodley at plus 200 odds, he's got multiple paths to victory. I think he can take down Luque. And like you said, Luque gets hit a lot. He's been hurt a lot. I think Woodley, you know, power is one of the last things to go, man. And I could see him cracking Luque. So for a possible knockout upside, for possible takedowns, one of the cheapest guys on the slate, I think Jared Gooden and Tyron Woodley are going to be probably my 2 biggest punts on DraftKings this week. Now, am I going to outright pick Tyron Woodley? Probably not. I think Vicente Luque is favored here for a reason. Like, you just can't have any faith in the way that Tyron Woodley's been performing. And Luque, on the other hand, I think Luque's been steadily making improvements. So, yeah, maybe he can come in here with a good game plan. You know, his teammate Gilbert Burns was the one that just fought and beat Tyron Woodley. So, yeah, man, you got to favor Luque, but to fade the former champ at minus 260 when he's taken such a step down, like, I don't think you should touch Luque from his betting standpoint. I think this is a DraftKings fight for sure. So, yeah, I'll go with Luque, but we might have a live dog here in the former.
And here's the other part of the narrative, okay, which you know, I'm sure you know, Kelton. UFC does not like Woodley, right? Like they are essentially going to let him fight out his contract. Right. I'm not sure if this is his last fight, if he's got additional fights. You know, they felt he held the division hostage for a while by not taking fights, by being injured. You know, there's probably a job for him in some capacity as an analyst. You know, I think, you know, again, that the UFC probably sees this as a very winnable fight for Luque. And I guess the other question I have for you is, and that was a great analogy about Chris Weidman. Was that not a home fight for Weidman, right? Was that fight not in Long Island? I always felt that was,
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I always felt that was a little suspicious. Almost like they had a handshake agreement, like, you know, Kelvin's going to let Chris. Now, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but like, you know, like I kind of saw that, like, okay, yeah, this is kind of odd. Like, you know, Kelvin is not looking as good, and you know, Weidman is home, and he needs a, I don't know, whatever, man. But yeah, I certainly can see the logic, and my, you know, as a value player, you know, if I thought Woodley was serious about continuing his career, if I thought he was trying to make a resurgence, I'd be a lot more apt to say, you know what, I'm on that train, right? Like I think he can, he can wrestle fuck Luque. If I thought that was the case, I will have shares of Woodley. He's too cheap. Like at his price and on DraftKings, he's simply too cheap. I just can't pull the trigger on a bet.
Right. So, moving on to the main event here, man. Very, very big fight. We got the rematch. The champion, Stipe Miocic, is going to be defending his heavyweight title for the second time against this man, Francis Ngannou. Joe, I'll let you take it away on this one, man.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the well with Nganu here. I mean, look, I think Stipe knows what he needs to do to win. He knows that he needs to take him down. He knows that he needs to avoid the big shot. Ngannou in their last fight caught him once really good, and you could see the side of Stipe's face just swell up and get bruised. Stipe's a smart fighter, but even at heavyweight, time is not your friend. So I want to believe that Nganu has gotten better, and I've heard, I'll shout out some props to Newsom. Apparently, there was an interview with Walt Harris, who trained for a bit at Syndicate out in Vegas, where Nganu was training, and he said he was shocked at the amount of wrestling that Nganu was doing, that the coaches were putting him through. Right. And the other thing, and this is what I thought really weird, every training camp, irrespective of who Nganu was fighting against, every training camp, they set aside a certain amount of time to actually train as if they were fighting Stipe. Even though they were fighting someone else, like a part of the training camp was how to beat Stipe. Right. So I'm going to go back to the well here. I think, look, if you like a side here, this is a great fight to bet. I mean, you're getting pretty close to even odds, whichever way you go. I'm going to go with Nganu. I'm going to go with Nganu by finish. I don't have a bet yet. I pretty much exclusively use DraftKings Sportsbook. So I'm going to wait for DraftKings to come out with the prop numbers, but I'm certainly going to play around with Nganu in round one, Nganu by KO, some of those types of fights, some of those, because I think if Stipe wins, he wins by decision. And if Nganu wins, he wins by finish. I'd be very surprised if Nganu won a 3-round decision. That would be a big surprise. So I'm going to go with Nganu. Of course, I will have shares of Stipe on DraftKings because, look, Stipe beat him once before, and I'd be a fool not to have some shares. But I'm going to be fairly heavy on Nganu, and that's one bet that I know I'm going to make right now.
So I am not going to be betting this fight. I think it's much too hard to call. Now, I do have a side I'll be picking, and I'll agree with you. I'm going to go with Francis Ngannou in this fight, and I got a comparison for this one too. Now, it doesn't compare in the sense of styles, but it compares in the sense of fighter progression. So you remember when Henry Cejudo fought Demetrius Johnson the first time, he clearly wasn't ready. He got blown out of the water. A couple of years of progression go by. He beats Demetrius Johnson. I think that might be a case here where, most people were on Francis in that first fight, and, Stipe kind of shocked the world in a sense, which is crazy considering he was the champion. But, man, it was clearly a case of Ngannou not being ready. And it's hard to say that he's making improvements just because of the way he's winning these fights. He's kind of just running at guys and knocking them out early. But, I mean, you got to think with the guys he's working with and everything like that, 2 years going by, you got to think Francis Ngannou is a better fighter this time. And not only that, man, Stipe in his last 3 fights against Daniel Cormier, he has taken big damage in all 3 of those fights. Not just the first one where he got knocked out. The second one where it was, let's be honest, it was a comeback. DC was putting it on him early in that second fight, and then Stipe got the knockout. And then you got the third fight, which was, it was pretty damn close, but probably clear Stipe. Either way, he took a lot of damage in all 3 of those fights. So is the durability of Stipe going to be the same? So just taking all those things into account, I think Francis Ngannou, even though he is the challenger, is probably the rightful favorite here. I'm going to pick him to come out and knock out Stipe, become champion. And as far as prop goes, you got Ngannou KO plus 100.
Like it.
You got Nganu round 1 plus 200.
Like it.
Or if you want to go the route of Stipe by decision, plus 375.
I might hedge a little. I'll hedge a little Stipe by decision do you have the line for fight ends in the first 60 seconds?
Ooh, I do not.
Okay, because that's a DraftKings prop that I fight, because that's also the bonus on DraftKings, right? But they actually have that as a betting prop on DraftKings Sportsbook. Fight ends in the first 60 seconds. So I might take a stab there, but I really do like hedging that Stipe by decision line. I like hedging that against my Nganu by finish. And I think you can carve out a nice little arb because, I really do see, I don't see Nganu winning by decision. If it goes to decision, it probably means Stipe was able to control Nganu by wrestling. And if there's going to be a finish, I suppose it's possible, but I don't see Stipe knocking out Nganu. I don't see that happen unless Nganu just gives up. I don't see that happening. So I really do like playing those props with Nganu and then hedging and even betting straight Nganu and hedging a little bit with decision by Stipe. I like it.
Yeah, man, all good points. And with the possibility of a Stipe finish, I kind of see it as unlikely too, because if Nganu was able to survive all 5 rounds last time as a unprogressed fighter, I'm sure at this point he even if the fight weren't gonna go his way, I feel like he would probably survive the 5 rounds. So yeah, man, you could play Nganu round 1, Nganu KO, and Stipe decision. You can play all 3 of those. You'd probably walk away with some money. So yeah, man. Now we're gonna jump onto this DraftKings slate, maybe touch on a couple things without giving too much away, of course. So I'm gonna bring it up here. The most expensive guy on the slate is Sean O'Malley. He's 9,200, which 9,200, that's not that bad considering I feel like a lot of minus 300s have been like 9,400 in the past. So yeah, I'm going to be taking Sean O'Malley here. I feel like he's live for that 60-second bonus that you just mentioned. I feel like he could just knock out Almeida really at any time here. The problem is if you want to play Sean O'Malley, you probably got to take some of those really cheap punts, which are either, your really only options, Jared Gooden, 7,200, Tyron Woodley, 7,100, or you could go up to Jillian Robertson, 7,400. Even then, that 7,400, that doesn't save you a whole lot of space. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm happy I like Woodley and Gooden as possible punts here, because if I didn't, I have no idea what I would be doing to get freaking Sean O'Malley into my lineup. So do you think Sean O'Malley's worth the 9,200?
Yeah, I do, especially relative to, say, Nurmagomedov. Luque would not surprise me if he his average score is 92. So It wouldn't surprise me if Luque, got onto the optimal. But I think, I'd rather pay up $100 and get O'Malley in. I think you could also look at, if you're looking for a fairly safe floor, even in a loss, which is not probably going to win you a GPP, but it maybe help you cash, is you could certainly take a flyer on Malarkey, against Worthy, who, we know Malarkey is tough. We know he's got a wrestling game. We know he can score. If he does happen to get a win by decision, he's gonna earn his salary and then some. So, there's definitely a shot there. However, I think Menefield's going to be popular at 8.1K. I think, there's a way to kind of balance your top end here. Morales might be popular, but I think there's going to be some risk because if it goes to decision, I don't really see Morales scoring that well. But, in terms of the upper range, I do like O'Malley probably as much, if not more, than anyone in that upper range.
As far as that bottom range, though, I know you picked Jillian outright, so at 7,400, I know you probably see value there. We kind of touched on it, but Jared Gooden and Tyron Woodley, I know you said you'll have a couple Woodley shares. Yep. Jared Gooden, you gonna have some Jared Gooden shares?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to because I can only imagine if Gooden wins me a GPP and I just post that, I know he'll react to it. So for that reason only, I'll no. I think it makes good sense. Like if you're spreading and, we could talk strategy for a little bit. Kelton and I were talking offline and, we're talking about like how to test, strategies on DraftKings. And again, I'm not going to make light of it because different people play different stakes. And, I'm not going to say it's not an insignificant amount of money to some people, but, the mini max, which is $1, 150 lineups. Yes, you're making $150 investment. However, you're not going to lose every single bet, right, by playing 150 lineups. So yes, maybe you'll sustain a loss, but it would be a statistical anomaly to lose the entire 150. So like there's a great way to test strategies. And we were also talking about the quarter arcade. The quarter arcade, it's, you're in for $5, right? And you play the quarter arcade and test strategies in mass entering 20 lineups. And then once you get comfortable with the quarter arcade, you could go up to the $3 haymaker, which is a $60 investment. So I would never say like jump right into the $18 or the $20 contest right away, because that is a real significant investment. If you're going to mass entry, test your strategies out on those lower dollar contests. And one, use technology. Like, don't try to hand build, 150 lineups. Like there are lineup optimizers that are out there that I don't use lineup optimizers to pick fighters for me. I use lineup optimizers as a tool to actually generate the lineups I want in a form that I could upload easily to DraftKings. So I go in and I set all my percentages. Like this is what percentage of this fighter I want. This is what percentage of that fighter I want. And I'm constantly tweaking. It's very rare that I get what I want on the first run. I mean, I might make 20 or 30 runs before I'm actually happy with the allocations I get. And then at least I know I could download that and upload it into DraftKings. So, I would certainly recommend going that route and reserve your contests early. Don't wait to the last minute to reserve your contest, because we have seen, contests sell out. MMA is, the silver lining of COVID, is that MMA got a lot of additional fans because that was one of the only sports that was actually putting on live shows. So now MMA has got an audience. We're seeing big contests. We're seeing a lot of the heavy lifters in the DFS community moving over and playing MMA, like Papa Gates and Chipotle Attic and, guys like that who are big time players in other sports. So, reserve your contests, put your time in, listen to pods, do your research, and then, test your strategies. Like, I don't know that there's a strategy that works better than any others. Like there are some cards, and this might be one of them, because there's only 10 fights, right? And let's hope we don't lose any. You might want to have a really tight core. And I mean, the last time I won really big in DraftKings, I actually had an extremely tight core. It was the card that Odie Osborne was on. I think I had 96% of him, and that was the first fight of the night. So that usually sets a pretty good tone. And he was the first fighter to actually earn. It's going to be a good trivia question someday. He was the first fighter to earn the 60-second bonus on DraftKings.
Yep.
It was Odie Osborne. So I had just extremely tight core and high weightings. And look, it was going to be a feast or famine card for me. As it turned out, I was able to take down with a few other people the main contest. But like, there are cards where you want to have a really tight core, and there are other cards where you want to spread, because there's a lot of ambiguity and there's a lot of different directions that, things can go in. And look, underdogs have been really live, in 2021. Like, even in main events, like, I don't know about you, Kelton, but I was really high on Jan to beat Adesanya for a lot of reasons. I was all in on Jan, and that really helped me out. And by the way, Sterling Jan, and again, I'll call it what it is. Very fortunate for me, because I think Sterling was on his way to losing that fight. I actually cashed a $5,000 parlay because I had Sterling in that parlay with Jan and other fighters. But Jan was the last leg of a $5,000 parlay. I think it was 500, so it was 10-1. So it was a 10-1 parlay that paid 5,000. That made my night, like when you hit something like that. So I would say, play around with lineups, use the, and also so you don't get caught up. Like I would say, don't start creating lineups till Saturday. Like wait for that late news, that final COVID test, because, worst case is like when you have like 45 minutes or an hour and you have to go back and like, change all these lineups, or even worse, like you do all your lineups on Friday and then you see all this dead money that shows up on Saturday because people didn't get the message or they went away. And, I'm not going to say who it was because this guy has got to be embarrassed, but I was in a $530 3-man contest. So there were three of us in the contest. We each put up $530. One of the guys in this contest did not take Brad Riddell out of his lineup. So like, I don't know how you could play that kind of money and not be on top of of news. And I said to myself, watch this guy win with 5 fighters. He didn't, but like he had Brad Riddell. So you always got to stay on top of the news. That's the other thing with DraftKings is like it's not as bad if you're a straight gambler because you're going to get a refund, right? If you don't get a refund on DraftKings, if your guy doesn't go, right? That's what's called dead money, and you don't want that. Like when our good friend Nation Attest puts up his player percentages, right after fighter percentages, right after the card begins, you see the fighters percentages next to the name of fighters who are no longer fighting on that card. That's what we refer to as dead money.
Yep.
Like that is dead money. That is money that, thank you, I'll take it. Like all the rest of us are going to get a share of that. Like it bolsters up our, the money we're going to make because you guys have no chance now. So those are things that you got to be cognizant of.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen up to like 10% dead money on GPPs before. It's crazy. Yep. That's a great point. You definitely got to keep up with it on DraftKings now. As far as the multi-entry, like putting a lot of lineups in there, it's a great strategy. Like that's what I've been doing. I've been doing like 40 to 60 lineups a card. And like Joe said, it's very hard, like statistically, to have a real bad shit of the bed night. Like worst case scenario, a lot of the time you're only losing maybe a little bit, like minus 10% ROI or breaking even. And that's no problem. If you're getting your money back every week, that's fine. Just keep getting your money back until you just need that one big night. So, I mean, if you're not losing money, that's almost as good as winning money, in my opinion. So I like that. Joe, I know you had a big win last week. Tell the people how you did that, man.
Yeah, that was a good win. So that was, my strategy is I hand create 20 lineups, right? So I do 20 lineups by hand, and then the other lineups, I use the lineup optimizer. And of the 20, right, is what I designate as 3 primary lineups, right? And the 3 primary lineups are where I play all the 3 maxes. Like, so if there's a 3 max contest, I'll play that. Now, I further designate one of those 3 lineups as my cash lineup and my single entry lineup. So I have 20 that I play, like the haymaker, the $3 contest. I'll play the $5 contest. I'll play the $8 contest. I'll play the satellite for the MMA knockout ticket. I'll put those all. I have 20 lineups that I put all that in, right? Then I narrow it down to 3, where I put a lot of where I put the 3 maxes in. Then I narrow it down to a cash lineup and a GPP lineup. And in the cash lineup, I'll also put single entries, right? So what ended up happening is my single entry lineup went 6-0. So all my cash games, and I include like triple ups and, head-to-heads, that lineup went 6-0. I mean, I had Brunson, I had Canelo Ruiz, I had Silva, right? And then I had, 3 favorites like Jackson, Yanez, and the other one who won big, right? So I went 6-0, and I ended up taking down the 5-5-5 contest, which is $20,000 the first, right? So I took down that. I took down the $40 contest. I took down the $100 contest. I won all of my cash games because I broke 700 points in that lineup. So without actually getting a share of the main contest, I was able to win $45,000 and a ticket. So I won a ticket, knockout qualifier ticket. So now I have 2. So I have 1 more that I can get. So that was kind of one of those nights where my primary lineup just clicked. And that doesn't happen as frequently. Like, I'm happy if my primary lineup, if I hit my cash games. I don't expect actually to win GPPs all the time with my primary, maybe cash on GPPs. But, that was very fortunate. It was a really, it came down to the last fight. Brunson ended up putting the highest score. He was the highest scorer on the slate, and I had Brunson and I liked Brunson, and I did not stack. I'm not as big a stacker as guys like Brett Apley are stacking the main event. I think there are some fights that you can stack, but for me, it's very rare that I'll end up stacking the main event. And I just don't like starting out with a loss. I mean, the other argument is, well, I'm starting out with a win, which, okay, I understand that, but so that's kind of how I did it. I've been on a pretty good run recently. I seem to be seeing things a lot clearer. And a lot of it is just having conviction to play underdogs. Like, going against the grain. Like, I even said it. I don't know if you saw my tweet earlier in the week, Elton, where I said, who is actually playing Cheyenne Bays at minus 375. I said, if you do that, I'm going to need a urine test and I'm going to need you to roll your sleeves up because call me the chick whisperer, but she is not a minus 375 fighter. And I watched some film on Canelo Ruiz and I'm like, she's not bad. Like, yes, she's got one move, but I think she can use that move to take buys down. And of course she did. And she put up over 100 points on DraftKings at like 7.1K. So I'm like, that was a home run. And I think my ownership of her was like north of 20%. I had like a lot of, and that's the other thing, keep track of your ownership projections. Rotor Grinders has an add-on to DraftKings where you can see actually what your percentages are of each fighter by total entries and by unique lineups. And what you want to do is use the unique lineups feature. If you have that add-on, and it's free, if you have that Rotor Grinders add-on, I highly recommend using it in DraftKings because that way you could see what your percentages are of each fighter. And that's how sometimes when I'll tweet out like, I got 30% so-and-so, I got 20%, I'm following it by using those statistics that I see, and it shows right up in your lineups, what percentages you have of fighters. So I highly recommend using that add-on.
Yeah, that Conejo one was big. And a thing is with DraftKings is a completely different game from betting. Whereas betting, we can pick our spots in betting. If we don't want to bet something, nobody's going to fucking make us. If we're in a DraftKings slate, we have to take every single fight into consideration. And if you see a big underdog, maybe you don't give them the best chance in the world, but you think they got a decent shot, just go in on that underdog, man, because this is MMA. A lot of upsets happen. Conejo, like I picked Cheyenne Bays, but obviously I thought that line was just completely ridiculous. So I went about 30% Conejo in DraftKings as well last week, and it paid off. That was a good one. Now, we were mentioning it off air. The last time you were on my podcast, we had Joel Alvarez against Joe Duffy. I mean, and that's another thing. Score. If you see these untrustworthy fighters, whether it be, guys with long layoffs who you question their motivation in the sport, like Joe Duffy, you see 5-1 unexperienced fighters like Cheyenne Bays, like, yeah, sometimes they are deserved to be the favorite, but man, if you see that value, you just got to go in and trust your gut on DraftKings because a lot of the time it really does pay off. And not only that, if you're playing these really cheap fighters, that allows you to play a lot of the expensive guys that you want to play. So sometimes, like, even if you're not overly confident, you just gotta fucking go for it, man. Like, scared money don't make money. So
by the way, I don't know if you remember, Kelton, but like when this fight card was first announced, there were 3 female fights on this card, right? And I was going to give out Penne, the opponent of Randa Marcos, and Robertson in a parlay, which would have paid, I believe, 8-1. And the last time I gave out a 3 female fight parlay, it paid 10-1, and it hit. And it hit. I gave it out. I mean, some people thought Kay Hansen beat Corey McKenna. I kind of thought it was close, but Corey McKenna was kind of the linchpin of that 3-fighter parlay, and that paid over 10-1. This was an 8-1 parlay, but now we have one of the 3 fights left. Marcos got pushed off to another card, and Goldie just came down with COVID, apparently was diagnosed with COVID, even though she didn't know it. So I feel bad for Penne because she's just aging, like waiting for a fight. But I liked her at plus 100.
I liked Penne. Like, I messed around with some lineups like a day or two ago. I was finding myself sticking Penne in there at the underdog price. Like, she's got all the grappling upside. I believe she earned her BJJ black belt recently as well. And man, Hannah Goldie, in my opinion, like, not only is she green, I just don't think she belongs. Like, her striking is ugly. Like, that's her go-to is her striking. And even that is just, it's not the prettiest.
By the way, Penne has one of the all-time best asses of female fighters. I mean, go look at the Creating Alpha backdrop. That's Jessica Penne's ass, prominently displayed. She is, and she actually really did. And I don't know why they stopped doing it. I don't know if you saw it, Kelton. She did this really funny show with Angela Hill called Two Straws, because 2 straw weights. And it was really funny. Like, they had some pretty good, production qualities around it. And they would be drinking while they were doing the, doing it. And I thought it was pretty funny. I don't know why they stopped doing it, but it was probably because Angela Hill, now she's doing the UFC stuff. She probably had to, cut back on, some of the other stuff she's doing. But that was really funny. And they're good friends. And like, you will see Jessica Penne in those like training videos that Angela Hill does. Like when she's like trying to like mimic what has to happen in a fight. And she does those training type vids. You'll see Jessica Penne. But yeah, like I said, very, 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 very fine ass. One of the all-time greats, in UFC women's fighting. So anyway.
Yeah, you're not going to find me disagreeing with that. I am a fan of Jessica Penne, and I'm glad to see that the bout is going to get rescheduled. I think they said June, something like that. So eventually, hopefully we get that same underdog line. Yep. It'll still be there, and hopefully you remember this podcast where me and Joe said that Penne's a live underdog. So
go for it.
So that's going to do it for us, guys. I appreciate Joe coming on very much. This was a fun podcast, man. It feels like forever ago that me and Justin had that heated debate against McCall Olachechek.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to review, those are my two bets as of right now. McCall, -147 for 3 units. I do have 2 units on Sean O'Malley via KO/TKO at +150. As far as bets that I'm eyeing, like, honestly, if the line gets better on Miranda Maverick, I have a lot of faith in that girl's ability and growing potential. I think the ceiling is with her all day. And I'm eyeing Jared Gooden, +205 as an underdog. I think that line's going to keep getting better. And, yeah, man, I feel like that's worth at least a 1-unit shot all day long. So, Joe, once again, I appreciate it, man. Tell the people where they can find you.
Anytime, man. My social media is pretty much restricted to Twitter. So at Sun Tzu on Twitter. Love to talk fights. Comedy, TV, movies. I try not to get political just because there's really no upside in getting political on Twitter. But you want to post pictures of food, I'm happy to comment on that as well. Let's look, we're all in this to make money, and we could take money from others where we don't have to beat each other. That's kind of the dream, right? Like the people that don't, do the research, that don't watch the pods, that don't like study the fight camps. And, if you're going to carve out a niche, in DFS, I think MMA is one where you really can benefit from putting in the time because it's less, and Brett Apley might disagree with me a little bit, but it's less statistical oriented than like some of the other sports where, you're looking at the NBA where it's all about usage, or, you've got all these sabermetric stats for baseball, like WOBA and WHIP. And like, it's just like, there's an edge to guys with bankrolls who can actually, manage these stats, right? But I think with MMA, it's just, MMA math does not work. We've kind of seen that in the past. It works less often than pretty much any other sport. So I love that it's not a math-based sport, So, good luck, everybody. Be careful this weekend, 10 fights. If another fight drops out, I would probably get away from spreading and just have a tight core if you're going to play.
Yeah, I like what you said about the other sports. Personally, I feel like this is almost obvious. Individual sports are much easier to predict or bet on than team sports. Whereas in team sports, you have so many different positions, so many different factors. Where I mean, the most success I've obviously MMA, and then I've talked to a lot of people that have bet on tennis in the past. I've heard tennis is not easy. Nothing's easy in this game, but people who would just blind bet underdogs in tennis, where they'll look at the rankings, they'll say, like, for example, they'll see rank 25 guy taking on rank 30 guy, but rank 30 guy is a +200 underdog, and they'll just kind of poke at that rank 30 guy +200, and more often than not, they'll profit in the long run. So I've kind of been looking into tennis lately. It's an interesting one. But,
but I used to do a lot of boxing betting, but the problem with boxing is the lines are so wide most of the time. It's really rare to find value in lines that you can actually, be confident. Like the largest bet I ever made straight up was on Felix Tito Trinidad against Oscar De La Hoya. And I got +110. That's how even that fight was lined. And that was the largest wager. I remember walking into Caesar's Palace with cash in my pocket, asking like, what's the limit? And the guy's like, well, what do you want to bet? And I'm like, I want to bet 8,000 on Felix Trinidad. And look, I'm not making light of $8,000, but at that time it was a lot of money to me. I know it's a lot of money to people now, but like at that time it was a lot of money to me. And I walked in, I'm like 8,000. It's like, okay, we'll take it. So printed out and I'm holding a ticket. Like $8,000 plus 110, Felix Trinidad, so that went my way, thankfully. And I went to see the fight. I actually watched it at a strip club in Houston because
Nice.
I was on a business trip, and my friend actually convinced the owner of the strip club to actually give me the poster, that they put up for the promo for the fight. So I got the poster, for the fight too. So that was actually really cool.
That's a cool story, man.
Yeah.
So, yep, hour and a half in, we are done. Appreciate it once again, Joe. Appreciate the viewers. I think we got up to like 30 something at one point.
Awesome.
Yeah, so appreciate you guys. Don't forget to hit that like button. It's not much, but I do appreciate it. Hit that subscribe too. Oh yeah, I didn't even say, last time we did my podcast, I was less than 700 subs. I think I'm up to 707 now. So appreciate the 700 subscribers.
Yeah, let's get them up to 1,000 by Memorial Day. Come on.
Ooh, that would be nice.
we could do, or 4th of July. Okay, we'll be a little bit more realistic. Let's get Kelton up to 1,000 subs by 4th of July. And what I'd really like to do at some point, and I got to convince my good friend Brett Apley because he doesn't like large pods, but like I'd love to get a roundtable pod going. And my idea, Kelton, is like we put people on sort of a timer. Like, you've got so much time to actually, because otherwise it could get really unruly and it could end up turning into like a 3-hour pod. But, you put people on a timer and say, okay, here you go. You got 30 seconds to make your case. Boom, move on to the next guy. So that's something that, I'll try to put together by the end of the year.
Yeah, I like that, man. I'm totally in for something.
I think that'll be cool.
Cool. So I appreciate it, guys. We're going to get out of here. Enjoy the fights on Saturday. This is a big one. So later.
Peace.